The punch landed with a sickening crack, splitting Elliot's lip and sending him sprawling across the kitchen floor of their family home in suburban Chicago. Blood pooled in his mouth as he looked up at his older brother, Mark, whose face was twisted in rage, fists clenched like weapons forged from years of unspoken hatred. "You're a disgrace," Mark snarled, his voice echoing through the house where their parents pretended not to hear, marking the night that shattered their bond forever. Elliot wiped the blood from his chin, his heart pounding not just from the pain but from the betrayal. At 17, he'd mustered the courage to come out to his family over dinner, expecting awkward silence at worst. But Mark's explosion turned the table into a battlefield. Their mother sobbed quietly in the corner, while their father stared at his plate, murmuring about family values and how Elliot's choice would ruin them all in their tight-knit conservative neighborhood. That night, Elliot packed a bag and left, hitchhiking to the city where he crashed on a friend's couch, vowing never to return. Mark, 5 years his senior, had always been the golden child, the star quarterback, the one who married his high school sweetheart, Lisa, and built a life that screamed American dream. Elliot, quieter and more introspective, had hidden his sexuality for years, fearing exactly this, the rejection that now burned like acid in his veins. In the weeks that followed, Elliot scraped by with odd jobs, eventually landing a scholarship to a community college where he studied graphic design. He met Ethan there, a fellow student with kind eyes and a laugh that made the world feel less hostile. Their friendship blossomed into something deeper, tentative at first, then passionate in the way only young love can be. Ethan came from a supportive family in New York, and his acceptance was a balm to Elliot's wounds. But back home, the rift widened. Mark doubled down on his homophobia, joining a local church group that preached against the gay agenda, using Elliot as an example in hushed conversations. Their parents, caught in the middle, sent Elliot occasional checks but never invited him back for holidays. "It's for the best," his mother would say on rare phone calls, her voice laced with guilt. Elliot learned to build walls, focusing on his new life with Ethan, who became his anchor. Years passed, and Elliot and Ethan moved in together in a small apartment in Brooklyn after graduation. Elliot freelanced as a designer, while Ethan pursued a career in social work, helping LGBTQ youth navigate the very traumas Elliot had endured. Their relationship wasn't without storms, arguments over finances, Ethan's long hours, Elliot's lingering trust issues, but they committed to each other in a quiet ceremony with friends, rings exchanged under a canopy of stars. Mark, meanwhile, climbed the corporate ladder in finance, buying a house in the suburbs with Lisa. They had a son, Tommy, who arrived like a beacon of normalcy. Mark doted on the boy, coaching his little league team and instilling the same rigid values he'd grown up with. But cracks appeared. Lisa's dissatisfaction with Mark's workaholic ways, his temper flaring at minor infractions. Deep down, Mark regretted that night with Elliot, but pride kept him silent. One evening, as Elliot and Ethan celebrated their 5th anniversary with a home-cooked meal, the phone rang. It was their mother, her voice trembling. "Mark's in trouble," she said. Lisa had left him, filing for divorce after discovering his affair with a colleague. Worse, she'd taken Tommy, but custody battles loomed. Mark was spiraling, drinking too much, his job hanging by a thread. "He needs family," she pleaded. But Elliot hung up, the old anger resurfacing like a tidal wave. Ethan urged him to reconsider. "Family isn't just blood. It's what you make of it. But maybe forgiveness starts with a conversation." Elliot resisted, haunted by nightmares of that kitchen floor. Yet, curiosity gnawed at him. What had become of the brother who'd once protected him from bullies, only to become one himself? Months later, a letter arrived, handwritten in Mark's scrawl. "I was wrong," it began. "I've lost everything because of my stupidity. Tommy asks about his uncle. Please, let's talk." Elliot crumpled it, but Ethan smoothed it out. "This could be your chance to heal," he said. Reluctantly, Elliot agreed to meet Mark at a neutral coffee shop in the city. Mark looked older, lines etched around his eyes. His once confident posture slumped. "I'm sorry," he said immediately, tears welling. "I was scared, ignorant. Dad's influence, the church, it's no excuse." Elliot listened, his heart a battlefield of resentment and pity. Mark confessed how the divorce had forced him to confront his biases. Therapy had opened his eyes to the pain he'd caused. They talked for hours, tentative bridges forming over shared memories. Mark admitted he'd followed Elliot's life from afar, envious of his authenticity. "You've built something real," he said. Elliot shared his struggles, the isolation, the therapy sessions where he'd unpacked the trauma. By the end, a fragile truce emerged, but trust would take time. As they parted, Mark hesitated. Tommy's struggling. Lisa's moving across the country. If things go south in court. He trailed off, but the implication hung heavy. Elliot shook his head. "One step at a time," he replied, but the seed was planted. Back home, Ethan was supportive but cautious. "Don't let him use you," he warned. Elliot nodded, but the idea of family tugged at him. He'd always wanted kids, but adoption processes were daunting for gay couples then. Still, this wasn't the way, through obligation and old wounds. The custody hearing approached, and Mark called in desperation. "She's painting me as unfit," he said. "If I lose him..." Elliot flew back to Chicago, testifying on Mark's behalf, speaking of redemption and second chances. The judge ruled joint custody, but Lisa's relocation complicated things. Mark, overwhelmed, asked the unthinkable. "Could you and Ethan take Tommy for a while? Just until I stabilize?" Elliot recoiled. "You're asking me to raise your son? After everything?" Mark broke down. "You're stable, Happy. He'd be safe with you." The decision tore at Elliot: accept and risk reopening scars, or refuse and abandon a child caught in the crossfire. Ethan was torn too. "We could give him a loving home," he said. "But at what cost to us?" They debated late into nights, weighing ethics, love, and legacy. In the end, they agreed, Tommy arriving with wide eyes and a backpack of toys. The adjustment was rocky. Tommy, at 7, echoed Mark's old prejudices at first, repeating slurs he'd heard. Elliot patiently corrected him, sharing stories of kindness over difference. Ethan taught him empathy through games and talks. Mark visited sporadically, his gratitude evident but his presence a reminder of past hurts. As months turned to years, Tommy thrived, calling Elliot and Ethan uncles with genuine affection. Mark rebuilt his life, dating again, attending pride events to support his brother. But the price was steep. Elliot's resentment lingered in quiet moments, Ethan's patience tested by the added responsibility. One day, Tommy asked about the scar on Elliot's lip. "Your dad and I had a fight," Elliot said honestly. "But we learned from it." Tommy nodded, hugging him. "I'm glad you're my family now." Yet, doubts crept in. Had Elliot forgiven too easily? Was Mark truly changed or just desperate? The family dynamics shifted. Alliances formed and fractured, each choice echoing with consequences. Tommy's arrival upended their Brooklyn routine, turning the cozy apartment into a whirlwind of school runs, bedtime stories, and therapy sessions for all. Elliot, now 32, juggled his design work from home, sketching logos while helping Tommy with homework. Ethan, 31, adjusted his social work schedule, but the strain showed in his tired eyes after long days. Mark called weekly, his voice laced with remorse and updates on his recovery. He joined AA, found a new job in sales, and started dating a woman named Sarah, who encouraged his growth. "Thank you for this," he'd say, but Elliot sensed the underlying relief. Mark had offloaded his mess onto the brother he'd once disowned. The first major conflict erupted over Christmas. Their parents invited everyone to Chicago, insisting on a family reunion. Elliot hesitated. The house held too many ghosts. Ethan pushed gently. For Tommy's sake. They went, arriving to a decorated home where tension simmered beneath the tinsel. Mark was there with Sarah, polite but awkward. Their father, gruff as ever, avoided eye contact with Ethan, muttering about modern times. Mother fussed over Tommy, but her questions to Elliot felt probing. Are you happy? Really? Dinner devolved when father raised a toast to traditional values. Glancing pointedly at Elliot and Ethan, Elliot snapped. Like the values that let you watch Mark beat me senseless? Silence fell. Mark intervened. Dad, we've moved past that. But the damage was done. Tommy, wide-eyed, asked later, why did Uncle Mark hurt you? Elliot explained age-appropriately, emphasizing forgiveness, but inside, rage boiled. Back in New York, Ethan confronted Elliot. You're holding on to anger. It's poisoning us. Elliot admitted it, but letting go felt like betrayal to his younger self. They sought couples counseling, unpacking how Tommy's presence highlighted their unaddressed issues. Elliot's fear of abandonment, Ethan's resentment at being the fixer. Society's gaze added pressure. At Tommy's school, whispers followed when Elliot and Ethan attended parent-teacher conferences. One mother pulled her child away, citing concerns. Tommy came home crying after a classmate called him names. Elliot's heart broke. He was reliving his trauma through the boy. Mark visited more, bonding with Tommy over baseball games in Central Park. One afternoon, as they watched Tommy play, Mark confessed, I was jealous of you. Even back then, you were brave enough to be yourself. Elliot softened slightly. Brave? I was terrified. Their talks deepened, revealing Mark's own struggles. A controlling father, suppressed emotions leading to his outburst. But betrayal struck again. Lisa resurfaced, sober after her own battles, demanding full custody. She argued Mark's instability and questioned Elliot and Ethan's lifestyle. Court papers arrived, painting Elliot as unfit due to his sexuality. Mark panicked, asking Elliot to step back. Just temporarily to strengthen my case. Elliot exploded. You use me when convenient, then discard me? Ethan stood by him, but the fight strained their relationship. We're a family now, Ethan said. Tommy needs us. They hired a lawyer fighting for guardianship rights, exposing the homophobia in the system. The hearing was grueling. Lisa's side trotted out old prejudices. Mark testified weakly, torn between loyalty and fear. Elliot spoke eloquently about love beyond blood, how he'd given Tommy stability. The judge, progressive, ruled in favor of joint arrangement, but with Elliot and Ethan as primary caregivers. Victory was bittersweet. Mark's hesitation revealed lingering doubts, eroding the fragile trust. Tommy, sensing the tension, acted out, getting into fights at school. Elliot and Ethan doubled efforts, enrolling him in programs for children of divorce, fostering open dialogues. As spring bloomed, a turning point came. Mark broke up with Sarah after she pushed him to fully embrace his brother's life. Alone again, he attended a PFLAG meeting with Elliot, tears flowing as parents shared stories similar to theirs. I get it now, Mark said. The pain I caused, it's unforgivable. Elliot didn't forgive outright, but acknowledged the effort. Actions speak louder. Mark committed to therapy together, unpacking their childhood under their father's shadow. Ethan watched warily, protective of Elliot. Tommy flourished, excelling in art like Elliot, his laughter filling their home. But the cost mounted. Elliot's freelance suffered from distractions. Ethan's promotion delayed. They argued over finances, Ethan's suggestion to ask Mark for help igniting old insecurities. One night, after tucking Tommy in, Elliot broke down. Am I doing this for him or to prove something? Ethan held him. Both, and that's okay. Love isn't perfect. Their bond strengthened through the fire, but scars remained. Society's pressures persisted. A local news story on gay adoption featured them anonymously, sparking backlash. Hate mail arrived, forcing them to install security. Mark stood up publicly, writing a letter to the editor defending his brother, a small act of atonement. Yet doubts lingered. Had Mark's change been genuine or circumstance-driven? Elliot pondered as he watched Tommy sleep, wondering if the cycle of pain would repeat. With the custody stabilized, life settled into a new normal, but undercurrents of tension rippled through. Elliot, now fully immersed in fatherhood, redesigned their apartment to include a room for Tommy, complete with bunk beds and posters of superheroes. Ethan took on more at work, advocating for queer families, drawing from their experiences. Mark relocated to New York for a job transfer, renting nearby to be closer to Tommy. Weekly dinners became routine, awkward at first but evolving into genuine connection. Mark shared stories of his therapy breakthroughs, admitting how their father's emotional unavailability had shaped his aggression. "I projected my fears onto you," he said one evening over pizza. Elliot listened, his guard lowering inch by inch. "It hurt more because it was you. You were my hero." Tears flowed, Tommy watching curiously before hugging them both. "Group hug!" he yelled, diffusing the moment with childlike innocence. But external forces tested them. Their parents visited, father grumbling about the big city liberals, mother trying to mediate. During a walk in the park, father cornered Elliot. "Mark says you've done well with the boy. Maybe I was wrong." It was the closest to an apology Elliot would get, but it stirred mixed emotions, validation tainted by years of silence. Ethan's family, in contrast, embraced Tommy, hosting barbecues where he played with cousins. Their acceptance highlighted the divide, making Elliot grateful yet envious. "Why couldn't mine be like this?" he'd whisper to Ethan at night. A major crisis hit when Tommy fell ill with pneumonia, hospitalized for days. Elliot and Ethan alternated shifts, exhaustion fraying nerves. Mark arrived, guilt-ridden. "This is my fault. If I'd been stable." Elliot cut him off. "Blaming won't help. Be here now." Mark stayed, reading to Tommy, his presence a quiet redemption. Recovery brought reflection. Tommy, fragile but resilient, asked probing questions. "Why can't I live with Dad?" Mark explained honestly, age-appropriately, about mistakes and growth. Elliot added, "Families come in all shapes. Love makes them." But the illness exposed vulnerabilities. Ethan's job offered a promotion to California, better pay but relocation. "We could start fresh," he suggested. Elliot balked. "Uproot Tommy?" And Mark's finally stepping up. The debate escalated, Ethan accusing Elliot of prioritizing his brother over their future. "After what he did?" Elliot defended. "He's changing, and Tommy needs his father." Ethan stormed out, spending the night at a friend's. Alone, Elliot confronted his divided loyalties: brother, partner, child. He called Mark, who advised, "Follow your heart, but don't lose Ethan." Reconciliation came with compromise. Ethan turned down the promotion, but they planned a vacation to recharge. Mark offered financial help, easing strains. Yet the argument left bruises, trust slightly eroded. Society's mirror reflected harshly. At a pride parade, they marched as a family, Tommy waving a rainbow flag. Mark joined hesitantly, but a photo went viral, drawing praise and vitriol. Online trolls targeted them, doxing their address. Police advised caution, forcing a move to a safer neighborhood. The upheaval bonded them closer. Tommy's school project on My Family featured drawings of Elliot, Ethan, and Mark, earning an A. "You're all my dads," he said, melting hearts. But Elliot wondered about long-term effects. Would Tommy resent the unconventional setup? Mark dated again, this time a man named Chris, surprising everyone. "Therapy opened my eyes," he confessed. "I'm bi, I think." Suppressed it forever. Elliot was stunned, then supportive. "Welcome to the club." It explained much: Mark's rage as projected self-hate. This revelation shifted dynamics. Mark's coming out faced backlash from old friends, mirroring Elliot's past. Elliot guided him, but resentment bubbled. "You beat me for what you were too?" Mark apologized profusely. "I was a coward." Ethan was wary. Convenient timing. But Mark proved sincerity, attending support groups, advocating publicly. Tommy adapted, calling Chris Uncle too. As years ticked by, Tommy now 10, the family navigated holidays blended, traditions merging. But undercurrents persisted. Elliot's therapy sessions delved into forgiveness's limits. Ethan's quiet frustrations at shared parenting. A betrayal loomed. Mark, in a moment of weakness, confided in Lisa about his orientation, hoping for understanding. She used it in a renewed custody push, arguing instability. Court again, accusations flying. Elliot testified, defending Mark now, roles reversed. The judge dismissed, but the ordeal scarred. "How could you trust her?" Elliot yelled. Mark hung his head. "I wanted peace." Trust fractured anew, decisions weighing heavy. In quiet moments, Elliot questioned his choices. Had embracing Mark been worth the pain? Tommy's happiness suggested yes, but at what personal cost? Adolescence hit Tommy like a storm, amplifying family fractures. 13, he rebelled, grades slipping, sneaking out. Elliot and Ethan grounded him, but arguments escalated. "You're not my real dad," Tommy shouted at Elliot one night, echoing old pains. Mark intervened, taking Tommy for weekends, but his own life complicated matters. Chris proposed and Mark accepted, planning a wedding. Elliot was best man, a symbol of healing, but Ethan felt sidelined. "It's always about them," he muttered. The wedding was beautiful, in a garden under sunny skies. Tommy ring bearer, beaming. But post-honeymoon, Mark's job demanded travel, reducing visits. Tommy felt abandoned, lashing out at school, suspended for fighting a bully who mocked his gay uncles. Elliot picked him up, heart heavy. "Words hurt, but violence isn't the answer." Tommy cried. "Like what Dad did to you?" The cycle stared back. Therapy for Tommy uncovered confusion over identity, loyalty divided. Society amplified woes. Anti-LGBTQ legislation in the news triggered Elliot's anxiety, fearing for Tommy's future. Ethan organized protests, dragging the family along. Mark joined, his advocacy genuine now, but past shadows lingered. A major confrontation brewed. Lisa, remarried, wanted Tommy back full-time, citing his troubles as proof of instability. "He's acting out because of your influence," she claimed in court filings. Mark fought, but evidence of his travels weakened his case. Elliot and Ethan stepped up, petitioning for adoption. "We've been his parents," Elliot argued. The process grueling, home visits probing their relationship. Ethan's resentment boiled over. "Why are we fixing Mark's messes again?" The hearing climaxed with Tommy's testimony. "I love all of them, but home is with Uncles Elliot and Ethan." Tears flowed. Judge granted adoption, Mark relinquishing rights tearfully. "It's what's best," he said, but betrayal stung. Had he given up too easily? Post-ruling, Mark distanced himself, guilt consuming him. Elliot reached out, but calls went unanswered. Ethan celebrated. Finally ours. But Elliot mourned the loss, the brother he'd fought to reclaim slipping away. Tommy stabilized, excelling in high school art club, inspired by Elliot. Ethan got promoted locally, balance restored. But nights brought doubts. Had adopting Tommy healed or highlighted rifts? Mark resurfaced months later, divorced from Chris after infidelity. His own. "I sabotage everything," he admitted over coffee. Elliot listened, empathy mixed with weariness. "You need to own your life." Reconnection tentative, Mark volunteering at Ethan's center, helping queer youth. Tommy warmed slowly, forgiving his father's flaws. Family therapy sessions unpacked layers. Mark's self-loathing, Elliot's victimhood, Ethan's martyrdom. A societal blow came with a hate crime nearby, a gay couple attacked. Fear gripped them. Elliot installed alarms, Ethan taught self-defense. Tommy, now aware, asked, "Will that happen to us?" Assurances rang hollow. Amidst, love persisted. Elliot and Ethan's 15th anniversary celebrated quietly, Tommy toasting, "To the best dads." Mark attended, his presence a testament to change. But costs tallied. Elliot's career plateaued. Ethan's health suffered from stress. Decisions loomed. Continue the blended family or set boundaries? In a pivotal talk, Elliot confronted Mark. "Your choices keep hurting us." Mark nodded. "I'll back off if needed." But Tommy pleaded, "Don't break us apart." Balance struck uneasily, each paying prices. Mark's isolation, Elliot's vigilance, Ethan's sacrifices. The story of redemption twisted with ongoing struggles. Tommy's high school years brought new trials, his emerging identity adding layers. At 16, he confided in Elliot, "I think I'm bi." Pride swelled, but fear too, echoes of their past. "We'll support you," Elliot assured. But inside, worries about society's cruelty churned. Mark reacted supportively, sharing his journey. "Don't hide like I did." But Tommy's coming out at school drew mixed responses. Friends accepting, others bullying. A fight landed him in detention. Elliot advocated with the principal, exposing biases. Ethan's work intensified with rising anti-LGBTQ sentiment, bills threatening rights. He lobbied, family joining rallies. Mark spoke publicly, his story of transformation inspiring some, enraging others. Threats arrived, forcing vigilance. A betrayal from within. Their father, in declining health, disowned Mark upon learning of his bisexuality. "No son of mine," he spat. Mother mediated, but the will excluded both brothers. Financially, it hurt little, but emotionally, it devastated. Elliot comforted Mark. "We make our own family." But resentment toward their parents festered. When father passed, the funeral was tense, eulogies avoiding truths. Elliot spoke last, subtly calling out hypocrisy. Love was his blind spot. Post-funeral, mother moved in temporarily, her presence healing and challenging. She apologized tearfully. "I failed you both." Elliot forgave, but Mark struggled. Tommy bonded with grandma, learning family history minus the pain. Ethan's breaking point came during a heated argument. "I've given everything, my career, my peace, for your family's drama." Elliot acknowledged, "You're right, let's prioritize us." They renewed vows privately, recommitting. Tommy dated first a girl, then a boy, navigating with guidance. Mark mentored, but overstepped, causing friction. "Let him learn," Elliot said. Mark backed off, respecting boundaries. Society's pressures peaked with a Supreme Court case on gay rights. They watched anxiously, relief when upheld. But local incidents, vandalism at Ethan's center, kept them on edge. A turning point, Tommy's graduation, valedictorian speech on acceptance, dedicating to his 3 dads. Applause thundered, but Elliot spotted tears in Mark's eyes. Afterward, Mark hugged him. "You've raised him better than I could." The summer brought reflection. Elliot landed a big design contract. Ethan published a book on queer parenting. Mark started a nonprofit for reconciling families, inviting Elliot to collaborate. But old wounds reopened when Lisa contacted Tommy directly, apologizing, seeking reconnection. Tommy hesitated, consulting all. "She's my mom," he said. Elliot supported, but warily. Past manipulations lingered. The meeting was emotional, forgiveness tentative. Mark attended, closure for all. Yet, it stirred Elliot's insecurities. Would Tommy choose blood over them? As Tommy headed to college, empty nest loomed. Elliot and Ethan planned travels, rediscovering coupledom. Mark visited often, their bond solidified through trials. Costs reflected. Years of therapy, strained relationships, societal battles. But growth evident. Mark's advocacy, Elliot's resilience, Ethan's steadfastness. In quiet evenings, Elliot pondered the journey. From that bloody kitchen to this fractured yet whole family. Was the pain worth the redemption? College distanced Tommy physically, but emotionally closer via calls and visits. Majoring in psychology, he aimed to help families like theirs. "You inspired me," he told Elliot, warming his heart. Mark's nonprofit thrived, partnering with Ethan's center. They co-hosted workshops, sharing their story anonymously at first, then openly. Audiences reacted variably, some moved, others skeptical. "How can you forgive?" one asked. Mark replied, "Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's choosing peace." Elliot grappled with that. In therapy, he admitted lingering anger. "He took my youth," the therapist probed, "but gave you purpose?" True, Tommy's presence had deepened his life, though at Ethan's expense sometimes. A crisis struck. Ethan's health scare, a heart murmur from stress. Hospitalized briefly, it forced reevaluation. "No more drama," Ethan declared post-recovery. Elliot agreed, setting firmer boundaries with Mark. Mark respected, focusing on his work. He remarried to a supportive partner, stability suiting him. Tommy approved, attending the wedding. Society evolved unevenly. Progress in laws contrasted backlashes. A hate bill proposed alarmed them. They lobbied together, family united. Tommy interned at the nonprofit Bridging Generations. But a final betrayal tested limits. Mark, in a documentary interview, shared details of their past without full consent. "To help others," he justified. Elliot felt exposed, violated. "You used our pain for clout?" Confrontation ensued. Mark apologized, pulling the segment. Trust repaired slowly, but scars deepened. Ethan sided with Elliot. "Enough second chances." Tommy mediated. "Dad's flawed, but trying." His perspective, shaped by all, highlighted growth. Elliot relented, but with caveats, no more public sharing without agreement. As years advanced, Elliot and Ethan retired to a quiet suburb, Tommy visiting with his partner. Mark nearby, grandkids on the horizon perhaps. Reflecting on the journey, Elliot wrote a memoir, anonymized, exploring love's complexities, betrayal's sting, redemption's fragility. It sparked debates online, forgiveness versus accountability. In the end, the family endured, each paying dearly. Lost years, emotional tolls, societal fights. But in Tommy's thriving, they found purpose. Was forgiving a violent homophobe the right choice, or does true justice demand permanent severance?